here is the piece that we're talking about, and what we don't, this isn't clear enough for you to actually see the details of it, but we're going to bring them up here for you. But this is the general impression that you get of this, and as you can see, it's pretty mysterious. When I looked at this, I thought, how am I going to tell these people what this says? This was a mystery. But just in looking at it, in the way that it is laid out, in the way they have laid this out, and because we can recognize some of these signs, and I'll pull these up in detail so you can see what I'm talking about, we can see just from a glance that this has the calendrical day signs that we associate with the Central Valley of Mexico. The tribes around Mexico City, what we know as the Aztec, the culture of the Nahuatl-speaking people, rather than other groups. The Maya, for example. And Fred, if you pull up the next slide, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm, of course, an artist, and I reproduce these things to study them. And in this case right here, this is a Maya word or a Maya method of writing. And the Maya method of writing is what we call logosyllabic or logophonetic. And what I mean by that is that we have a logograph, and that would be this part right here, an idea of the word or a symbol of the idea of the word. And as you can see, this has the face of a man on this side, and on this side, it's the face of a deer. And when these guys played the ball game, the sacred ball game, they often wear these big, tall deer hats. They're taking on the spirit of a deer. So we have both of these combined in this logograph, but their manner of writing is more complicated than that. And in fact, there's no guesswork about this at all, because these marks here tell you exactly the syllable you're looking for, what it sounds like. And the next sound, and in this case, it tells you that the action has already occurred or that it's a past tense. So this is writing in its most definite sense. There's no other word that sounds like this word. This sound put together with this sound, then it's the past tense of it. And this word is pizza, he played ball. And this is a logosyllabic, or the phonetics of this word are all in this kind of writing. Well, the kind of writing that we do in, or that the people in the Central Valley of Mexico did, is of a pictographic nature. Okay, this particular image here, I knew from the recognition of these day signs that we're looking at the group of day signs used by the Central Valley of Mexico. And if you know what I'm talking about, there are 20 of these day signs. And these 20 day signs are combined with 13 digits. These are really just a camouflage for a 20-base system. You have a 20-base system in combination with a 13-base system, and 13 times 20 becomes 260. And this 260-day calendar has confused people forever. Today, the experts are telling you that where this 260-day calendar came from is the human gestation period. How long is the human gestation period? Anybody? Hands?
40 weeks. 40 weeks.
Times 7? I think the human gestation period is more like 268, 69, or 73 days. It's not 260. And I'll tell you, if we get far enough, I'm going to tell you some things about this calendar that'll blow your mind. But the point being, we recognize these day signs. So like, my job then became to go do comparative research with the Central Valley group. And what I have up here for you now is a piece from the Codex Borgia that has this similar kind of layout. These day signs lined up in a horizontal band and a vertical band. And these are in the order that the day signs occur. Eagle, vulture, motion, knife, rain, flower, and then we're back to the beginning day sign. This is actually the first one of the group, but because of where this falls in the thing, this 13-day period, alligator, wind, house, lizard, snake, death, and deer. So they are talking about a 13-day period of time here, and we know that because these follow one after the other. There are 13 of them there. 20 of these make up the whole 260-day calendar. And we see these with a scene, with a ritual scene, a deity that presides over this group of days. And here's another of these tresinas, or 13-day periods. In this case, you can see, and if you can read the little dots here, you can see this one reads left to right and bottom to top. Day 1, reed. Day 2, jaguar. 3, eagle. 4, vulture. 5, motion. 6, knife. 7, what comes after knife? I can't even read it. Rain. Is that 8? Flower. 9. I can't even read them myself. But anyway, 13. It ends on 13, snake up here. And this happens to be Chalakautle, which is the goddess of flowing water. So again, we see that these are in the order that they appear. There are 13 of them. But you can see here that not only is this sign presided over by this deity in each case, there's the day sign, here's the deity presiding over it, but also these other influences. Another deity with a mouth scroll coming out, indicating, now normally this indicates a flowery sound, a song they're singing, or words that they're saying. But because there happen to be 4 colors used in this, I'm thinking that this is a direction, that there's a bird, a direction, a bee, a secondary deity along, and so the influences on each of these days are very complicated. And in trying to research this, I got to do a lot of drawing to get all this in there, and I've done many of these. Next one, please. Here is another tresina, and this one reads top to bottom and right to left. 1 deer, 2 rabbit, 3 rain, 4, no, that would be water, 4 dog, 5 monkey, 6, I can't even see what that is, grass, 7, 8, 9, eagle, vulture, motion, knife, and what does it say? Is that one rain? 13. Anyway, there are 13, a 13-day period again. As you can see, some of them read left to right and bottom to top. Some of them read top to bottom, right to left. In any event, here again, we know they're talking about a 13-day period and the deities that preside over them. But let's look at this scene here for a moment, because this becomes pertinent to our investigation. As you notice, we have here a jaguar sitting on a little stool with sun symbols on it. There's another character here, and this happens to be a Quetzalcoatl character. We can tell by this little fish hook that he's wearing. This may be his twin brother Zolotl. I'm not positive of whether that's Quetzalcoatl or his brother. Nonetheless, he has got this guy by the hair here, and we have this scene in a number of codices. We have it in the Borbonicus, we have it in Codex Borgia. This one right here comes from Codex Aubin. can we go to our next slide? And then maybe we can come back and compare it. I want you to look at the leftmost panel in this codex. Now, the top part of the page has been ripped off, but in the elements that are left, now I'm not talking about the horizontal band of glyphs, nor the vertical band that interrupts them. I'm talking about, we see the little stool with the sun symbol on it. This one has some blue, the other one's just in red and yellow. But we also see that who's sitting on this stool? He has jaguar spots, he has claws for feet, he has blood on the claws. And he's not wearing any pants. This is not a jaguar suit he's wearing. This is a jaguar sitting on the throne. And he's got a hand here holding this little guy by the hair. He's got his eyes closed and he's got a red tummy. Well, this is an indication they've already gone in and taken out his heart. And he is a sacrificee. Scholars have identified this scene in other codices. All I had to do was read about it. This is a character. His real identity is Tezcatlipoca, one of the principal creation deities of the Central Mexican group. He's also one of the central deities of the Maya group, only they call him something else. He would be Huracan in the Maya cosmology, the god of hurricanes. That's where we get our word for hurricane, by the way. Anywho, he has four aspects, and in this aspect, his red aspect, he is a character who is called Tepeyolot, heart of the mountain. And what happens here, we know all about this ceremony. This ceremony is attached to the vernal equinox. They sacrifice this guy, the priests flay his skin. In fact, this ceremony is called the flaying of the men, the flayed men ceremony. And why they do this, it has to do with taking that hard corn kernel, when you plant it and it soaks and it splits the hard shell off and the new life comes. This is new life. This has to do with the planting of corn, the generation of new life. But the point here is that we know this occurred on the vernal equinox. This is tied to our solar year, okay? So, big clue here for us as we go forward. Let's go to our next scene, and we find out that these symbols here are, these little dilapidated broom symbols are symbols of the harvest ceremony, which occurs on the autumnal equinox. And the character here is a Quetzalcoatl character, but this is not, it turns out to be not Quetzalcoatl. The Quetzalcoatl character that he resembles here is a character we see in the Borgia Codex, whom they call Stripe Eye. But as we will find out as we go along here, this comes not from a Nahuatl group, but from the Mixtec group. And their Quetzalcoatl figure was a character known by the name of Nine Wind Flint Helmet. And he is a wind deity. So we've got an autumnal and a vernal equinox. Guess what's coming? This deity here does not, is a rain deity, but he does not resemble the normal rain deity that we're familiar with the Aztecs, who would be Tlaloc, but he does have the big goggle eyes, the hook nose, and the elaborate ear, the things that we associate with this rain deity. And this ceremony occurs, this is the winter solstice, it's the beginning of the rainy season there. Again, it's tied to the solar calendar, and if we move on, you know what's coming, and indeed you're right. And although this has a lot of damage here, we can't really see what the identity of this guy was. There's plenty enough here to identify the scene. You can see that on his tunic, he has a solar representation. This is a solar deity, and this would be either Tanatawa or Huitzilopochtli, depending upon who this group actually was. But these symbols, we know what these birds that are offered in sacrifice. Here is a group of year bearers, and they call this ceremony the raising of the banners. And of course, we have our banner here. So we've got here, so far, in these four principal scenes, a vernal, autumnal equinox, a winter, summer solstice. Those are our four principal astronomical points in our solar cycle. And so we come to this last one. And this scene right here, although there are 5 scenes, this scene takes up 1/3 of the whole document. This scene, which really goes to the end of the document, gets more play than any of the solstice or equinox scenes. And it's very interesting. I really want you to see this, because this is important, because this kind of a document in these codices is called a Tanalamat, a book of days. This book of days that the priest would look at to as an augury for prognostication of the days to come. But this is not astrology, folks. Most people think it is. They look at these crazy pictures and they think, well, this is all baloney, and like astrology, they've made this up. It's not. It may look like it to the uninformed, but this is astronomy. They are talking about actual cycles here. The meanings that they attach to them may be something else, but the mathematical base is purely astronomical. In any event, they call this book of days, metaphorically, Tezcatlipoca's smoking mirror, because the priest could look at this book and tell you about the future, just like somebody looking into a crystal ball. When somebody here looks into a crystal ball, you know, they're telling you, well, what are they telling you? Something in their own mind. They can count these cycles and tell you when Venus is going to be in conjunction with the sun, when it's going to go behind it, when Mars is going to disappear, come in contact with one of these, when the eclipse is going to occur, and likewise, what the tide is going to be. If you will look here, you will see that the jaguar is holding a yellow disc. That's the sun that he's holding. He's not holding his mirror. Here's his mirror over here. He's actually holding the sun. This has little eyes on it and a little, so he's holding the disc of the sun. He is having it reflect off his obsidian mirror, and this snake figure here is igniting. These things are their way of writing a human heart. These little green triangles with the red triangle, these represent a human heart. And what he's doing is he is taking this heart that they've extracted and kindling a fire in it. This was what Tezcatlipoca did in the Orion Nebula, in the skirt of Orion in ancient times. He took the belt of Orion, that was his fire sticks, and he kindled the first fire in the skirt of Orion, and what you see is the Orion Nebula, that little fuzzy thing there. That's the smoke of the first fire that Tezcatlipoca created. They recreate this fire every 52 years in what they call the New Fire Ceremony. So what he is doing here is he is igniting a fire in that freshly extracted human heart. Now, what they would do is every 52 years, they would stop the calendar, everybody closed their doors, they put out all the fires, no food was cooked, nobody went hunting, stay indoors, lay low. These days don't go on the calendar, don't put your head out the door, throw your old stuff in the lake, lay low. These days don't happen. They are not even entered into the calendar. And here's why. If you count our year at 365 days, it's a whole lot easier than counting it at 365 and a quarter. That quarter day messes you up. You cannot tell when it happens. It's just like any other day. But you can't divide that quarter day from the other 3 quarters of that day and attach one to one year and one to another. It doesn't work like that. And you don't notice it. It takes 4 years for it to even be off one day. So if you are watching the sun rising and setting and how high it gets in the sky daily, you can easily establish that there are 365 days. But if you count them at 365 days, after 4 years, you're 1 day behind. After 8 years, you're 2 days behind. Well, after 52 years, you're going to be sitting there waiting for the solstice, and it's going to take 13 more days before it gets there, because 52 times 1 quarter is 13 whole days. So in order to put the calendar back on track, they hold everything, close shop, put out the fires, wait for those 13 days to pass, and when they have, you sacrifice somebody. You're paying for this sunlight, and that's what this is all about. This is a payment for this sunlight. They want the sun to stop and go back the other way. They don't want it to keep going. They want it to be like it's supposed to be. And that's what this sacrifice is all about. I'm on the subject here of Tezcatlipoca's trip, or trick, the new fire ceremony. Why this one right here takes up 1/3 of the document. I mean, when I saw what this was, I went, yes! Because this is important. This was very important to them. It's the basis of this calendar. That little quarter day becomes the basis of everything else. That 52 times that quarter becomes 13 days. Well, 4 of these and 5 of these is really 20 times those 13 days becomes the 260, and then you're just multiplying 20 times that unit and 20 times this unit. It becomes 20 years, it becomes a year, it becomes 20 years, it becomes 400 years, it becomes 8,000 years, and it continually gets multiplied by 20. But that is the same little quarter. The whole thing is built from the smallest piece of the fractal, and that's what this is. And I'll talk more about this sophistication of the fractal, but what I'm getting to here is this missing piece right here is where the action was in this scene. Can you see? What is the thing that's going on there, you can't see. That's the missing piece. Huh? What is going on right there? He's got his arms out here. Snakes, you can see some snakes off his arm. It's interesting that this would be out of the middle of the page. I mean, if it were at the page where you were turning it and it ripped, you could understand, but out of the middle of the page, was this a prejudice of somebody seeing what he was doing, that this got punched out of the middle of the page? This is a piece of black magic, what he's doing here, you understand? Did you find it, Roger? Fantastic. So, what we do have here is a frame, and we see a little circle and yellow. So this is either the mirror or the sun. And what he is doing here, I offer that he is igniting a fire in a human heart. And that is what made this priest so angry that he punched this piece out of this document. Very well may have been the reason why that piece is torn off the other end over there, the half page. Same black magic, or would have been interpreted that way by the priests. Let me show you this. This is just so wonderful. this is the actual, this is just like, and indeed is one of the kind of a obsidian mirror that the shamans would use, and the very thing, the metaphor, Kelly, how you doing, sir? The very thing that this is a metaphor for. This piece is called a smoking mirror. This is a smoking mirror. Just as someone would look into this and prognosticate the future, the shaman could read these day signs and prognosticate the future. So, understanding the significance of this figure here, and this is the 13-day ceremony that brings everything back into order, makes the rest of this scene understandable for us. Now we have a picture of this cauldron in other codices. These little, this little area is it's surrounded by, it has these little teats that have a little dot, and this little dot in Maya way of writing represents, I think they call it its, or kawil. It is like sweat, blood, tears. It has life in it. It is liquid with life in it. This is the human essence. And all of these guys here, do we have the rest of the scene? Let's just pull up the rest of the scene. Okay, all of these guys have their eyes closed. They all have the same earring, the same headdress or hairdo. Their hair is all tied the same way, same necklace. Their eyes are all closed. These are the sacrificees' payment for the sun. And this would either be the hearts or the paper with the blood drippings on it that are burned, and then from that burn and that smoke, the ancestors are supposed to materialize from the smoke, from that snake of smoke. Anywho, this is the payment for the sunlight, and these 5 characters here with the knives in their mouth, this represents the cutting off of the breath. Their breath was cut off. These are sacrificees. And in the way these sacrificees are the ways this is conducted, these guys are tied to a gladiatorial stone, a big stone, and they're tied to it, and they're given a club that is armed with feathers. And then they fight warriors with real swords that are armed with sharp obsidian blades. And it's, of course, a mock battle, and the guy with the feathers always loses. Not always. We have a case where one guy was so bad that he actually defended himself against two eagle warriors, 2 leopard warriors, and a left-handed warrior. There were 5 of these guys who did these executions. They had the jaguar warriors, the eagle warriors, and a left-handed warrior. These 5 did these executions. So that's why I propose these are, and these would be the dates that those executions occurred on. And so this tells you the subject matter of what they're talking about here. And these 4 and 5 elements that are multiplied, that like are 20, this is the 20 that the multiples of this system. And this system is the same system. I mean, most people, I don't know whether they recognize this or not. What's different about it is that the Maya count this from the last day of the period, and consequently, all of their time groupings are going to end on an Ahu date. These people count it from the first day of the period. And so the way these things cycle are very different.